Ottawa County Board of Commissioners. The date is Tuesday, November 24th. Our invocation this afternoon is by Commissioner Zylstra, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Justin Roebuck. Please rise.
Lord, bless us as we meet to discuss matters of well-being of Ottawa County residents. Impart your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful and equitable conclusion. May we continue to seek your guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our deliberations and grant the gift of your grace in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Give us insight to lead with integrity, that our decisions may reflect what is right and good, and grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we do and say. We thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who might be on the public watching, you will notice that we have fewer commissioners here. We've tried to space ourselves out a little bit more, and we have we will have five commissioners on Zoom today, and I want to thank them and express my appreciation for the fact that they are coming on Zoom today. With that, is there any presentations or petitions? Presentation of petitions or communications.
Mr. Chair, can we do a roll call?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We can, yes. Sorry.
Mr. Garcia,
Here.
Mr. Baumann,
Here.
Mr. Zylstra,
Here.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Here.
Mr. Link, Mr. Terpstra,
Here.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Here.
Mr. DeYoung,
Here.
Mr. Kyers, and Mr. Bergman,
Here.
and Mr. Fensky.
Here.
My finger was blocking the last.
Well, we are off to a smooth start, aren't we? All right. This is the first time this afternoon that we will have entertained public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment at this time? If not, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to comment at this time? I'm getting a head shaking no. Okay. All right. So the next thing is communication from county staff. Do we have Lisa on? It looks like she's there.
Yeah,
she is. Hi, Lisa.
You're muted.
Good
There
afternoon,
she is.
everybody.
Hi, Lisa.
Try to get my screens all in the right place here. Give me just a quick second. All right, I hope everybody's doing well. So I'll give you a brief COVID update. So there has now been over 12,200 cases of COVID-19, 352 hospitalizations, and 121 deaths reported in Ottawa County since March. These numbers are up to 37% of the cases, up to 37% of the cases were reported just within the last 2 weeks. The number of hospitalizations, deaths, and test positivity in Ottawa County have also hit record highs just within this month. The trends continue to show the widespread activity of COVID throughout Ottawa County, across the state of Michigan, and the country at large. And with the holiday season just around the corner, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have issued quite a bit of guidance for holiday celebrations and small gatherings, and I'll mention that a little bit more as we go through the rest of the presentation. As of this morning, we've had 12,215 cases, 121 deaths, 354 hospitalizations. Case counts went up 241% since October 1 to date. Hospitalizations are up 83% and deaths up 81% for that same time period since October 1. Hospitals in Ottawa County are reporting various levels of strain due to COVID-19, depending on which part of the county we're talking about. A third of the hospitals report operating in crisis capacity, while 2/3 offer care in its usual capacity, and that's as of yesterday. 65% of hospital inpatient beds were in use, and 37% were used by COVID-19 cases. 58% of our ICU beds were in use, and 33% of those were used by COVID cases. Test positivity, which we've talked about a number of times, continues to be an important metric that we're watching closely. With the recent surge in cases, overall test positivity increased steadily from 3% in October to about 17% in the last week, which is a 5.5-fold increase from early October to late November. Daily test counts now stand at about 2,200 tests per day. Those tests include all of the facilities that are doing testing, anywhere from an urgent care to some of our community-based testing clinics. The sharp increase in positivity is disproportionate to the increase in test counts, and this is indicative of increased transmission. The current wave in COVID-19 is characterized by increase in cases in almost every demographic group, age group, and geography. As I've mentioned before, often since March, we were able to attribute increases in case numbers to a certain demographic. And again, we are just seeing widespread community transmission among all demographics. We've seen cases among school-age children and school staff. But we hope that the recent pandemic orders limiting in-person school will help to curb some of that transmission. We know that roughly 75% of our schools right now have transitioned to remote or online learning. And, a lot of them, the last day is today for them to be before they break for the holiday. The time it takes to get a COVID test result back has increased by an extra 2 days. For quite a while, we were seeing we could get a test result back in a couple days. Now it's about 4.4 days on average, which is concerning. The current surge in cases has challenged our system, our public health system, and we have a backlog of completing case investigations and contact tracing. At our last meeting, I did mention that we've been working closely with our state partners to continue this public health work, and we've been turning over probably about half of our cases to the state for them to do case investigation. We continue to work on our systems here. It seems like daily we have to change just the operations of our electronic system for doing case and contact investigation, which again, it just has to do with the changing environment and the huge increase in the number of cases that we're having, and our need to really keep up with that. Avoiding gatherings, including Thanksgiving, staying away from others when you're sick, maintaining a 6-foot distance from others, masking, and frequent hand washing remain the best defense. I know we sound like a broken record, but this is so important. And so to our community, as we look to Thanksgiving, I want to again express the importance of avoiding gathering with people outside of your immediate family this year. I know this will be hard. It will be hard for me too. I am going to miss that specialness of being in person with the people I love most, and that's my family. But it's really because we love our families and care about our hospital workers, our emergency responders, our public health workers, the older adults living in care facilities, people with health conditions, and because our culture here in Ottawa County has always been to serve others before ourselves. We should all stay home this year because of that. I also want to mention that we're working collaboratively with our hospitals, healthcare, community pharmacies, other health departments throughout West Michigan to plan the process for providing COVID-19 vaccination. You're probably reading about some of this in the news. We're kind of getting a trickle of information in from our state and federal partners. Soon we'll be provided confirmation on the prioritization phases, and that's basically who gets vaccine when, and the distribution of the vaccine and how that will look. And that information is going to be used to guide our regional and local actions. And again, the most important thing for all of you to know is that we're working together to ensure ethical distribution and credible and timely information as we provide access to this long awaited vaccine. It'll take time though. I just want to make sure that we all manage our expectations and that of our constituents. It won't be a situation where we have enough vaccine for everybody to get it all at once and all at the beginning. So that's why there will be phases. And I can tell you for sure that as soon as we get that information and we're able to work through that process, we will certainly keep you in the loop as well as our community members. One last thing I just want to mention, I know that you're deciding today on extending the emergency declaration. I can tell you that this emergency declaration has been critical to our department's ability to respond in this unprecedented emergency. I think you'd be very surprised if you lived in our space on a daily basis and actually knew the changing environment and the atmosphere that we've endured as public health workers. And always, always, always our primary goal is to take action that protects all of our residents from COVID-19. We have to adapt so quickly to this changing environment, and that means that we have to make changes very quickly, and the emergency declaration has helped us to do that. It has allowed us to bring additional revenue into Ottawa County to help us do that work and to do it quickly. We've been able to hire staff to do case and contact investigation. And most recently, now we're adapting our process and bringing in additional staff to help us plan for mass vaccination clinics and purchasing the necessary equipment like freezers very quickly. And so those are just a couple examples of how it's been a tremendous benefit to us. And I just encourage you and ask you for your continued support so that we can do the job that we're really mandated to do and that we want to do so desperately to protect the health and well-being of our community. And I just thank you for your continued support. And I wish you all a happy, healthy holiday. And again, I will open it up for questions and just thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions on Zoom? Let me see if anyone raises their hand. Oh, I've got Doug. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, hey Lisa, how you doing?
Hey, good, Doug.
Good, thank you for all your work, number one. And then also, as far as the vaccine, and this may be too far out, but do you foresee that the vaccine will be delivered the way the flu vaccine is currently being delivered, or would it be through the public health only?
From what I understand at this point, Doug, it will be a different distribution system than we would see normal flu vaccine distribution. Flu vaccine has become very commonplace now. It's like we order chickenpox vaccine, we order flu vaccine. It comes in a timely way, and when the season arrives, flu season arrives, and we get it out to everybody. And the hospitals and healthcare providers do it the same way. I believe this will come to us in different ways, and some of that has yet to be determined, but it will be special.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else on Zoom? Yeah. Okay, how about here? Go ahead.
Roger, or Mr. Chair, thank you. Lisa, Randy Mepling, quick question for you. You said that there were, right now, the test result response is on an average of 4.4 days for receiving that, the results back. What can we do is there anything we can do as a whole or as a team? What can we do to make that a better response for the citizens so that they can get the results back faster?
Randy, that's such an excellent question, and I really appreciate your advocacy on behalf of our residents. This is something that has been very concerning for our department as well as all of our healthcare partners. We've been having weekly calls with our healthcare partners and to talk about how this this might look. I can tell you that after one of our last calls, our lab, the different labs, and there are more labs than you may imagine. This is all new to me since COVID, but all these labs that are actually doing the tests, we're going to get together and talk about how they might be able to work more effectively to speed up the delivery of those vaccine results. One of the big challenges is right now, again, it's the number of cases that we have. It's the number of people that have symptoms that are going in for testing. And so, again, we've got to get the number of ill people down in order for our system to be able to handle the capacity. And that's just not in the testing arena, but it's also in the hospital bed arena. It's managing and controlling the spread of COVID that's going to help us to respond in all these different areas of COVID response. We're working on it. I mean, I don't have a perfect answer for you today, but we're all aware of it and concerned about it, and we're trying to coordinate and cooperate with one another to make it happen better and faster.
Good. So just for everyone's information, Commissioner Kyers, I believe, just joined us. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Thanks. So Al, did you have a question?
Yeah, Lisa, partial assisted living homes and nursing homes, are they under quarantine from the governor or not? Are they not quite under that?
Well, the governors, or it's actually the MDHHS health officer, Director Gordon, who has put out an epidemic order right now. And I believe we all fall under that epidemic order. There are some specific provisions for long-term care facilities, which include a periodic requirement for testing staff and people that are living in long-term care facilities. There also have been some restrictions with visitation. I believe all of those are part of the epidemic order at this point.
Okay. The reason why I ask is that what I heard from a couple of them out of Zealand is that they had people that were going to be leaving to go to their families on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh,
Now, I think that could be a mistake, but what do I know?
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. And I would be absolutely happy to look into that and get more information because, yeah, that could be concerning. So I'm making a note of that.
You may gladly email me that question and I will pass it on to you or text me,
Okay,
whatever.
excellent.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Mr.
So,
Chair,
Lisa-
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Garcia has raised his hand.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Frank.
Lisa, thank you for your work and your department. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be several vaccines, available coming soon. Help me understand how that process is going to work to get it down to the local residents. I imagine that the federal government's working on a plan, and probably our state officials, and then I would imagine that our county is also working on a plan when it gets down to that level. Is that how that's going to work?
That's in a nutshell exactly how it will work. We've actually trained for under our emergency preparedness, Homeland Security dollars. For many years, we have to practice doing mass vaccination clinics. We have agreements with people within our community for storage. Some of that is going to work for us. Some of it isn't because each situation is unique and different. We're working with some of our local partners on how to store this vaccine. We are purchasing freezers. We are working with hospitals, healthcare providers, pharmacies to really look at what the plan would look like on a local level for the actual vaccination of people. There's an ethical distribution that is being considered right now by ACIP, which is the it's a national association that really drives all of the immunization safety and vaccination standards, and we take our guidance from them. And right now they're looking at who would be first, who would be second, and it will be phased. Obviously, you can probably imagine, we'd be talking about healthcare workers would be likely in the first tier. We're going to be looking at individuals that are some preliminary guidance, but we haven't gotten confirmation on that yet. Again, we also want to make sure that we're all functioning in cooperation with one another. It is to a large extent up to the health department to do that coordination work, and that's why we're reaching out and having a lot of conversations with all of our community partners because it's a heavy lift. It'll take a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, and I feel confident that we're on top of that, especially because Ottawa County and really the West Michigan region is traditionally very, very good at working together. And so I'm happy about that. I'm happy with the direction that we're taking, and I feel confident that we're going to be able to get this vaccine into the hands of the people that can make it happen for their patients and their, kind of spheres of influence. Did I answer your question?
No, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Lisa, I have a question. The question is, in light of the fact that we have so many increased cases and the load continues to be a heavy load for your department, I'm wondering how you and your staff are able to keep up with quarantines, advice regarding quarantines. And in the past, I know that if people, my son's family were contacted every day to see how they were doing and to make sure that they were staying within their quarantine, I believe. So how are you able to keep up with all of that? Are you able to keep up with all that?
It's a great question. And the very, very honest answer is we haven't been able to keep up with the same level of follow-up that we have been able to throughout the pandemic. And probably, I mentioned that since October 1, that's when we've really seen the tremendous increase. And unfortunately, it wasn't just Ottawa County, it's across the whole state. And so our backup plan was to use the state as an additional provider of case and contact investigation. And I mentioned that we've been turning over a lot of our cases to them to do it for us. They haven't been able to keep up either because of the enormous case increase across the entire state. So in some ways, we've had to prioritize, and we've prioritized cases. And so what we've done is when we are notified by the Michigan Disease Surveillance System that somebody has had a positive lab result for COVID-19, we make sure that they get a contact. They do provide us, in some cases, with the names of their contacts. And we ask them, we say, it's going to be a while before we're going to be able to get to your contacts. So will you contact them? Will you call your family members and friends that you've been in close contact with and tell them that they need to go into quarantine? Because it may be a few days before we can get in touch with them. And so we're really relying on people to help us right now. And we realize it's not ideal. And I mentioned also that we're working on tweaking some of our electronic systems to help us to respond more quickly. But it is somewhat different than it has been. And we're really working to correct that. We continue to believe that quarantine and isolation, so isolation for the person who's positive and quarantine for the person who's a close contact, is the best measure of defense right now, other than masking and distancing and hand washing and all of those things. So we have to continue to work on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
But we do really ask for our community's help.
Right, good. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciate the work that you and your department is doing, and pass on the good wishes to for a good holiday and for your department and the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, the next thing is a public hearing on community development block grant funding for CARES funding. Greg, would you make that motion first, please?
I will, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the public grant, I make a motion to open the public hearing to receive comments on the Michigan Community Grant Block funding for CARES funding.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfluer,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Eplink,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske, and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
All right, we have the number of votes.
All right. Is
Open the hearing.
there anyone in the public that is wanting to comment on this? No? Okay, and we can close the meeting, is that correct?
Just need a motion to close it, and
Yes,
then we can
yes.
do that
Would
by
you make
voice
that,
vote.
Greg?
Yes. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the Michigan Community Development Block Grant funding for CARES funding.
Supported.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll again, please?
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Meffelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
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 Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Thing is approval of agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
or- Mr. Holtfluer,
Yes.
Mr. Eplink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung, Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under actions and reports, consent resolutions, Mr. Fenske.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to accept consent resolutions 1 through 3.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann, Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meffelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Holtfluer,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
On the agenda is from administration. Mr. Danberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to accept the easement with David Mayer for the Idaho Explorers Trail Route along the shoreline of the Grand River at the purchase price of $2,500.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meffelink,
A lot of confidence there.
Mr. Meffelink.
It's all right, Frank. It's okay.
Is that a yes from you, Mr. Meffelink?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Declaration of a local state of emergency resolution. Mr. Fenty.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the declaration of a local state emergency resolution, I'd like to move to approve and authorize the board chair and clerk register to sign the resolution to extend a state of emergency within Ottawa County due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Supported.
Moved and supported. Al, would you just
Yes.
reinforce what this means?
Sure. And let me start, since we've been through several of these, and I get emails and phone calls after we do this as well. This is not externally focused. So the DHHS director is taking care of COVID orders as it relates to the state and businesses and other organizations and all that. What the board order has been more internally focused. It basically allows us to respond quickly in the event we need to move staff around. Our latest totals on our county staff is that we've had 24 COVID cases on staff in November alone. That compares to 16 in October, 3 in September, 3 in August. And so obviously, as we have more and more people that have to be quarantined and maybe coworkers that had contact that have to be quarantined, basically what this order does, it allows us to move staff around regardless of job descriptions and employee handbooks and contracts and all those kinds of things. So we can very nimbly respond to needing manpower. And quite honestly, that helps us keep our open for services. And also what it allows us to do is manage facilities in a way where we can decide to either close the county or be open by appointment, which we went to last week. And again, try to set it up to minimize contact for our employees so that we can keep people on the job, providing services to people, while at the same time keeping the county open so that people can access those services. And so that's really our ultimate goal, has been to keep providing services to the public. Our other major goal, keep our employees safe, because ultimately, you know, this is almost like a war or a battle where you've got your troops and you basically need to be able to deploy them in such a way that you can get the job done. And this order really helps us do that. It's not as much about the money. I mean, the way my actions happen under this order, I do it by administrative rule, which is drafted by Doug Van Essen, and then I sign it, and then we provide it to you and date it on the date that we provide it to you. And so this has been less about money, even though there have been some, as you have seen, that have involved money, and more about the ability to quickly add staff. For example, one of the times when the health department was really up against it, we added 17 staff just like that, and we had the money from the state to back adding those staff. And so, you know, it's a lot of people see this as sinister. They see it as, you know, a concentration of power that's wrong or something like that. We're a team here, you know, and the team, the emergency management director, the health officer, the sheriff is here, and all fully support this. And it's just, we very appreciate your confidence in us and in helping us have the tools to deal with this crisis as much as possible. A couple other things I'll just mention. It's been brought up that, hey, other counties aren't doing this. There were a few when it started. Kent County has had a resolution that granted the same kind of authority to the administrator without calling it a local declaration. On the listserv that John and I are on for the Michigan Municipal Executives, there was a call for copies of local declarations. So I think as COVID has gotten far worse than it was when we started this process, there's a lot of governments that are now maybe starting to go down that path. I heard earlier today that there's a House bill that apparently is being moved in the Senate that would require that anyone who wants to hold Zoom meetings after January 1 would have to have a local declaration in place. Our strategy has been, even though when the cases went way down in the summer, that this is a tool that allows us to respond quickly. And I think it's been the right call. And I think others will emulate this as things get worse and worse. And that's really kind of what I have prepared. I know Doug is with us by Zoom today, and he gave his famous 3-bucket speech a few weeks ago, and that really helped explain it well too. But we're here for questions if you have it. I'm here, Doug's here, Sheriff's here. Lisa's still here if you have questions.
Oh, Mr. Chair. Al, thank you. You explained it to me very well. I understand it. But there's a whole bunch of people out there that do not understand local government and what's happening. Because I had one approach me and said, "Sir, you're gonna pass the Emergency Act again, and he said, you and the sheriff get to be willy-nilly on any rules you feel that are important." And I said, "No, that's not the case." But again, they're gonna believe what they wanna believe. So I am disappointed on not you or the county, but on some of the people not fully understanding why we are doing this.
I had an early call with the media, maybe 2 of these ago, and they asked me about that, about authority, could it run rampant? And I said, you know what, I work for a group where every 2 weeks, 6 of them could decide it's time for a new administrator. And so, I obviously have to watch my actions very carefully and be very accountable to you. And I believe we have been during this time. And I haven't received any input from the board that suggests otherwise. And obviously, if there was a perception, or if we were needing to change something, we would do it, obviously. So.
Al, if I could just add, in response to Commissioner Dannenberg, the confusion here, the community confusion, is frankly the governor's fault. Because had she used the director to do emergency orders from the beginning and used her powers merely internally to deal with the state government and how it functioned, like we in Ottawa County have used your declaration merely internally for how we operate, whether it's in the Board of Commissioners or with the doors being open to appointment only or open partially, that kind of thing, people wouldn't be this confused. But the reality is we've always had the right approach for this emergency declaration, and using it just internally. That need, as Al has alluded to, has never been greater right now because we're in the Bell Lab. We can see over the next 2 months, maybe the next 4 months with one more extension, we're going to have the first vaccines distributed, and we're also going to have the highest level of COVID that we've had. So everything's going to get more intense in the next 2 months, maybe 4 months, and then hopefully the sun will come out and this will be over. But now is not the time, I think, to succumb to the community confusion caused by the governor, not by us in Ottawa County.
Yep. Anyone else? Yep.
Yeah, I've got a question. And my question is for Sheriff Kemker. I was wondering if he could come up and tell us about what this means to your department.
Good afternoon. Yeah, what it means for our agency, I really have to echo what you've heard from Lisa, Al, and Doug. I'm not going to get into huge numbers and statistics, but it's obvious that, this COVID, the second wave has hit us. And for the sheriff's office, this is different this time than the first wave. During that first wave, we saw our call volumes drop. We saw our jail population drop. We saw traffic accidents drop. Everything just dropped. With this second round now, our calls for service are at our norm. We're dealing with, I'm going to be honest with you, some more violent crimes right now. And it's our responsibility and my responsibility to the citizens of this county to continue to provide quality law enforcement services and keep our staff healthy and also our citizens healthy. Because I could run into a real staffing issue if we start losing a number of deputies to COVID, or if we lose a whole branch office to COVID. I wouldn't want to have to call upon another law enforcement agency, but I think a good example was the DeWitt Police Department over by Lansing. That whole department was wiped out by COVID, had to be covered. And very unfortunately, one of their officers just passed away from the COVID. So again, this emergency order, it's basically for our internal use. Again, as it's brought up for internal use, it helps us with Al having the powers under this. If we do have to make an emergency purchase, that we don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks to try to procure equipment that we may need immediately for public safety. Our day-to-day operations, it changes daily. As the new emergency orders came out from the governor and the public health director, it now puts a burden on us that we are constantly getting together. We have to look at our scheduling. It gives us more flexibility to schedule, like Al mentioned, with the other county departments, that scheduling. And again, for us to continue to provide and maintain what we have, that's going to be very important to us, that again, that flexibility. Again, we're a 24/7 operation, and I do not want to reduce any services to our community that they're used to. Again, I think we provide the best quality law enforcement in West Michigan. And, yes, COVID has hit our staff. It's eased up a little bit. I'll be honest with you, a couple of weeks ago, I was starting to worry a little bit because of the number of people that were coming down with COVID. But it seems now that we've leveled a little bit. Again, we've put more precautions in place for our staff. And again, we're working on some scheduling changes, which is important for us to do, to keep our squad separated, do that maintaining of social distancing, and we're going to make some significant scheduling changes this weekend. So again, I sent an email out, I believe about 2 weeks ago, reference this topic. And again, I would ask the board for public safety reasons that you would support this. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, Ottawa County Sheriff detectives caught a cow. Do we still own that cow, or did we find a home?
The cow has found a home, but I think as of yesterday, we picked up a pig now. So yeah, again, our calls for service sometimes are unusual. But I do want to say to you that we are seeing some more serious crimes taking place in the county. That is starting to be a little bit of concern. You've seen the cell phone store robberies and some other situations. Domestic violence is still on the top of our list. And also just a quick touch on, the Children's Advocacy Center, believe it or not, is busy. The crimes against children, both physical and sexual, have not decreased. So again, our staff is busy. I've got to really thank our staff. This has been an unusual year for law enforcement, something that none of us ever thought we'd see in our career. But I do have to thank the men and women of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office, for keeping the ship afloat and maintaining the service that our citizens expect from us.
Anyone else? Thanks, Steve.
Good, thank you.
All right, are we ready to vote? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meplink,
Yes.
Mr. Bauman,
Yes.
Mr. Fensky,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
From Finance Administration, Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the 2020 Ottawa County Apportionment Report, I make a motion to approve the amended 2020 Ottawa County Apportionment Report.
Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meplink,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Bauman,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Michael, for the work that you do in putting this together also. I noticed that you're on and we didn't need you to give us any information today, so thanks for hanging in there. Looks like he's there. He is there, yeah. All right. Appointments, none. Discussion items, report of the county administrator.
Yeah, just a couple items today. Just wanted to mention that we will be having a second board meeting in December this year. Typically, we'd like to avoid that one because it's right in the middle of the holidays and near Christmas, and if we can get business done early. But this year, we hope to have, as usual, all 7 union contracts approved by the end of the year. And it's going to take us that long, I think, to get through everything. So do mark your calendars for that. You should be receiving my review in the mail today, and if there'll be a timeline to turn that around, and Marcy's the one that kind of runs herd on that. And our other processes and projects are all kind of underway and where they should be. So the DEI strategic plan is still scheduled to be completed by the end of this year. John and Doug have been riding herd on the new Justice Center project, and that's Family Justice Center project. That's going well. And then also wage study will be done probably end of March, and we're deep into that as well at this time. With that, I'd just like to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you have relaxing time with your families, and hopefully we'll be treated to a rare Lions victory this week. So best to you and your families for the day and the week.
All right, thank you, Al. Any general information, comments, and meetings attended? Not too many meetings attended, but any comments from anyone? All right, I've got a couple of comments. First, I was privileged to speak on behalf of the commission this morning on the Adoption Day program that happened this morning with Judge Fyan. And I was really impressed, especially with the Brendan Hazen family and their story that they gave this morning. I don't know if they, I noticed that Kevin Bowling is on. I'm wondering, Kevin, is there a way that you could maybe post that on our website so that people could reference that? I mean, that was it would have been neat to see the actual the actual visual that they put together, but even the visual that they did kind of off the record this morning was phenomenal in itself. Would you not agree?
I would agree, Commissioner. And again, on behalf of the courts, thank you so much for representing the board this morning. We really appreciated the support, your sharing the resolution, and we can certainly ask the family. I'd want to get their permission before we posted
the
message, but it certainly is inspiring, especially during this week of Thanksgiving, where it gives us something to truly be thankful for.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Another thing I have is I'd like to ask Amanda Price, how is, in light of the fact that it seems as though we're hearing more and more about people having a difficult time keeping up with rent payments, but also house payments, and the likelihood of people going bankrupt, foreclosures, how is the county preparing, or what are you doing to help people in those kind of situations?
Well, I would encourage anyone who's having difficulty making mortgage payments to contact their mortgage lender. In the earlier versions of the federal legislation, there were some provisions to have a pause on your payments. So take advantage of that. I'm not sure how many people did take advantage of that early on, but I still encourage you to do that. Again, if you're having difficulties coming current on your property taxes, I would encourage you to contact our office. We can work with you to come up with payment plans, and there are several programs available through the state and locally that could help you with your situation. So I really encourage you to do that, and don't be proactive in that, and don't let it happen and wait till the last moment, because sometimes we get a flurry of people at the last moment, and it's just better to take care of it because you incur fewer fees and interest if you're more upfront about it.
Good. I think it's the reason I've asked you this is because I think it's important for the public to hear the fact that you as a department work with these people to keep them out of foreclosure.
That's
and I
our
think
goal.
that somehow we need to get that message out through the media and any other way that we can, maybe because I don't know how many people we have on, how many people do we have on Facebook today or YouTube? Do you know?
I think it was 4 or 5.
Oh, only a few? Yeah. That's unfortunate because I was thinking that, somehow we need to get that message out. So I don't know if you have any other ideas on how we can do that, but I think that's important for the public to hear.
I'll give you a recount of what we did this year. We had 10 properties that were up for foreclosure, 7 of which were vacant pieces of land and 3 which were homes. And so at the last moment, we pulled those homes off there because unusual circumstances, families were in Mexico or they hadn't gotten the mail and all these other, but that's the goal is to foreclose on as few as pieces of property as possible. So.
Good. All right. Thank you, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last thing I wanted to just mention is that when we were on Zoom this morning with the Honorable Mark Fine, his fire alarm went off. And he said, don't worry about the fire alarm going off. It goes off periodically. And I thought, Kevin, why hasn't that been fixed?
Yeah, good question.
We've asked for fixes for many years, and we've been repeatedly told that it's not possible.
Well, okay. Anyway, that's all I have. We're up to public comment again. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to? There is?
Mr.
Do you have public comment?
First.
So we have Marissa, and Marissa, if you could just unmute and state your name and address for the public record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yep, my name is Marissa Burkhorst and my address is 9412 Dougford Drive in Zealand. I'm in Randy Meppelink's district, and I attended the commissioners meeting over Zoom a month ago and listened to the public comments regarding Libertas Christian School and the orders laid forth by the health department. And it was interesting to me that at that meeting, every single commissioner wore a cloth face mask and no other commissioners meeting up until then. And I looked at the YouTube channel and saw that no other commissioner or Mrs. Stefanowski wore face coverings, even when they were in rooms with other people at any of the other meetings. And I'm joining today, and I noticed that there are commissioners who don't have face coverings on that are made of cloth. I do see the shields. And I'm just wondering if that is an appropriate use of the face mask ordinance. And if so, why other businesses and other entities such as Libertas Christian School, that the face shields aren't an acceptable use of the face mask ordinance. And I'm just wondering if the commissioners can speak on the fact that this would be super confusing to the public. I heard that some of the confusion would come from the governor's office on the use of the powers from the emergency orders. But I'm wondering if the commissioners can admit that when even the commissioners aren't following the ordinances laid out by Director Gordon to the extent of the order, that it gets confusing to the public on what is acceptable to follow in the order and what is not acceptable to follow in the order. So, thank you.
Thanks, Marissa. Is there anyone else?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right, okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment. I missed the first part, okay?
Okay.
Al sent out an email saying that there's going to be no Fillmore Christmas party or nothing like that. That's all canceled, and that's fine. But
hey, Al, can you speak into the mic?
Okay, you're kind of quiet. Start over.
okay. Al sent out an email saying that the Christmas parties are canceled for the county. That I understand is fine with that. But they also said that each department was going to be trying to raise money for nonprofits, each one on their own. And I asked the admin ladies, said, can the commissioners join the admin team? because I think we got to be involved in raising some money too for the Christmas time.
Good.
So I will try to communicate with Regina and Stephanie and see what's emails going out to you guys and how we want to do that.
Good.
But I
Thank
think
you.
we got to be part of it too.
Yep, good. Thanks, Al. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Did you have something else to say, Al?
No.
Okay. Been moved and supported. Comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thanks, we're done.